Hey, before you go, please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Guys, leave a comment.
Phenomenon. Coding.
Hello, guys. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, afternoon, morning, or night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Life's Deceit with me, your host, Jen Simpson. How are you guys doing? We are still celebrating the month of February, highlighting Black history. But remember, we celebrate Black history every month, every day, 365. Black history is our history. Today, we'll be discussing the lies and deceit within the American system with the beautiful Dr. Angeline Dean. Dr. Angeline Dean has been called a lifesaver, a breath of fresh air for her ability to bring different perspectives to challenge situations. She's an entrepreneur, a thought leader who is not afraid to take risks and possesses a keen sense of recognizing and responding to call for change. Dr. Dean holds a bachelor's degree in social science, master's degree in community and economics development, and a PhD in access, success, and equity in urban education, where she was the first to be chosen specifically due to her justice, civic, and organizing skill set. So, guys, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Angeline Dean.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I am good. I'm so excited to finally have you on.
I know we finally made it, right? We finally meet up. We finally made it. Yes.
I'm so excited. I've been sitting here and I'm like, I cannot wait to meet this phenomenal powerhouse. And I'm like, this is my mother. I can call you my mother. You are our mother.
I'll with it. Trust me. I don't have any kids naturally, but I've had 3 teens come through my home. So
wow.
I'll wear it.
Listen, I'm your daughter. I'm excited, and I feel so good to say that you are my mother because, thank Brittany for introducing us. I have to give Brittany, thank you so much, Miss Brittany Miller. I love you so much.
Is she not dopeness personified?
Yes. She's the real deal. She's the boss.
Yeah.
She stands on business and what she believes, and she will go to the lengths.
Absolute Boss Lady Boulevard.
Boss Lady Boulevard. So when she told me about you, I was so excited. I'm like, I can't wait to get you on and look at it. Before we didn't get to meet in this, I think it was December or January, one of those months, but February is perfect. I always say people are like, oh, Black History Month, whatever. But you know what? Let's change the tone and let's be grateful that we have an extra month to highlight our greatness and who we are and who we continue to strive to be and the examples that we're setting for the generation and the children to see.
Yes.
So
yes,
having you on here, I'm excited because you are a great and tremendous model, not just for me, but for my children. I'm excited. I can't wait for my kids. My son was just here helping me and I'm like,
nice.
I'm like, Dr. Dean.
Well, thank you first and foremost for even having me on. And let me tell you, honey, your hair is fire.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You know what? Let me talk about hair for a second because when I go out now, I tell people, you have no idea how long it took me to cut my hair. I've been wanting to cut my hair for years. And you know what? Let's talk about this hair with Black women, right? Because it is a stigma. It's a thing. When you cut your hair, you're no longer beautiful apparently in their eyes, right? And I've always I would go between growing back my hair, going short, and then the other day I was like, I think I'm gonna grow it back. And then I wash it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. And then I'm not growing it back. I love it. I love that I'm embracing who I am and I feel so much free. So
nice. Yes. One of my friends, she had the locks.
Yeah.
And I love locks. Anybody that can rock it. I love
Yeah.
it. And I went to see her and she cut them all off. I was like, sis, what
She cut
happened?
them.
And she was like,
Oh,
she said, girl, I feel free. That's
yeah.
exactly what she said.
Yeah.
And
I
I was
feel
like,
so free.
wow, okay.
I feel so free. I feel like I can be myself. Like I don't know. It's like, you know, growing up in church, they tell you not to cut your hair. If you go to
Okay.
Pentecostal church, when I talk to
Mm-hmm.
my mom's like, why would you cut your hair? Your hair is your strength. You better grow it back. And I'm like, I'm still a powerhouse.
That's right.
I'm a God-fearing woman. So my hair
Come
does not
on.
change anything.
Come
And it
on. Come
doesn't
on.
change how God sees me. So don't make me feel ashamed for cutting my hair because
And you
God
better
still loves
come
me the
on.
same. So
And
it's
I
like,
think at one point in time, that was a black man thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
you know
do.
what?
I
My
do.
fiance, he loves my short hair. And
Nice.
you know, when I was cutting it, I'm like, what if he doesn't like it anymore? What if he starts saying, "Ugh, girl, grow back your hair"? But he loves me for who I am. It's not even about the way I look.
Right.
So that is
Yeah.
good to feel, you know?
Well, I will tell you, you are wearing it and you are wearing it well.
Thank you so much. How
Yes,
was your day?
ma'am.
How's your day going?
Actually, I had a very good day today, a very productive day. I was just telling someone because, lately it's just been on overload.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if I'm physically tired or more so mentally tired. And I don't know sometimes which one is worse, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I've been
Mhm.
going through that same thing that you're saying too. I don't know if it's mentally tired or physically
Yes.
tired. And I'm like, you know what? It's mentally tired because
hmm
of everything that's happening, everything that's going on, and we're trying to do so much, right? So it's a
Yes.
mental tiredness, and then it impacts our body, and we just want to,
Oh,
just sleep away,
yes.
right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're telling the truth. Yes.
So I'm so
Amen.
excited for you to tell us about you. I don't even want to tell. I want you to tell us about who you are and how you became a doctor. Where did it begin?
Whew. So it's so funny when people ask me, who am I? I say that I was created to be, to walk in truth. Um, when I talk about holistic measures, they laugh at me because they're, anybody who knows me, I'll say holistic with a W, right?
Yeah.
Because I believe that prior to coming here naturally, um, that there was a word spoken over my life, right? Already
Yeah.
previously. And we think that we live from beginning to end. I'm a firm believer that we live from ending to beginning. Um, and so I believe that in that time I was formed and created to be to walk in truth, to walk in identity, and to walk in holism.
Mhm.
So therefore, that's who I am. What I do as an author, an activist, a project manager, a consultant, an entrepreneur, a speaker, what all of those things constitute who I am.
Yep.
Right? A lot of people, when you say, who are you? Oh, I'm a mom, I'm this, I'm
Yeah.
this, I'm this, I'm this. But I feel like those things constitute who you are and who you were created to be. And so I speak from that realm first. I say I speak from heaven to earth. And
Right.
so that's who I am.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when people will say, describe yourself, I will say that I am an unapologetic African American, or sometimes I'll say Black, depending on the crowd that I'm in, if they have the understanding of Black that I have. Or so I'll say I am an unapologetic, authentic African American female disruptor. Boom. And I'll leave it like that.
You you
So
you you shook a whole room saying that.
say that again.
You shook a whole room saying that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's really my personality. But a lot of times people really don't understand. Sometimes I just like being by myself. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to do all of that. I can honestly walk into, it's a joke for some of us again. I can walk into a room where a conversation or something is going, and I'll say, I'm going in this room. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen. And within 10 minutes, somebody will say something. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Back that up again? Can you? I'm like, oh no.
I said I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah, so that's what happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happens. So, how did I become a doctor? So, it's interesting. Growing up, I either wanted to be a fashion designer, an attorney, or a doctor, right?
Mhm.
And I say that I still became all three. So, my first degree is in fashion. I say because of my activism and advocacy work and changing policy, working to change policies and all that kind of stuff, in some ways I get to be a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
In some
Yeah.
ways. And then all of a sudden I became Dr. Angeline Dean. So the doctor that I was thinking didn't come to fruition, but doctor
Yep.
still came to fruition. So, I'm like, okay, this is it. And it's funny because my dad said to me, and I never knew of this, excuse me, the day of my dissertation defense, he made some statements, and he said, I always wanted a doctor in our family. I never knew that. And he goes, but I just didn't know it was coming this way.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. And I remember, so first of all, I love school. I've always loved school. And I love school probably because I ask 50 million questions. I got on everybody's nerves. um, but I was always very, very inquisitive. And I I will say that my family primed my atmosphere for that.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? And it's funny, Brittany gave me some questions to answer today that I was working on. And I had to think about it because she was like, how, like something like what shaped you to become that disruptor or catalyst for change
Hmm.
and teaching. But I had to go rewind. Every interview I credit my grandmother. My before my grandmother transitioned, she used to go to like these different farm stands, and they would give her fruit and vegetables and bread and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes we would have to come with her, and we would get mad, right? We were like, why we gotta go to, and in our family, it's not funny, but we was kids, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we would be like, why we gotta go to the poor fruit stand? Like, why we gotta go get all this? He said my grandmother was the modern day Medea before
Hmm.
Medea was ever invented, right? So all we did was laugh with her. But when we came back home, and I didn't understand it at first because I'm like, my grandfather owned property, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't get it. And it wasn't until then my grandmother would come home and she would put all this stuff in these different bags. And then we would have to take it to people in the community.
Yeah.
And from that, to shorten the story, from that, I learned disparity. I learned what inequality looked like and inequity looked like, but I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know that my grandmother was an advocate and activist because those weren't real titles that I knew of at
Hmm.
that time.
Yeah.
And then my mother, and my aunt, we always had kids coming through our home, always. And before my grandmother transitioned, she was actually cited by the state of New Jersey for, actually at her funeral, for having over 200 foster children come through her home. And that was not even including the children from the neighborhood. So when people say, oh, We used to sleep with our doors unlocked. When I went to my grandmother's house, we slept with the doors unlocked. And that was real. So people could come in the house like 2, 3, 4 o'clock if they was hungry,
Yeah.
if they got kicked out, if all of these types of things. So again, I started learning, but not really understanding what I was learning at the time, right?
Like preparation.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I just remember this one story. Um, One night, and we were up because she was a late nighter. Child, she used to watch the fashion shows at 3, 4 in the morning, everything, right?
Yeah.
So she would make us stay up and watch movies, all kinds of stuff so that we could tell her. But I remember we got a phone call this one night, and it was somebody had left a baby in a taxi cab. And they called her to bring their child to the home. And again, in my ignorance, I I was like, Grandma, who would do that? Who would leave their baby in a cab?
Yeah.
And she was like, come here, honey, sit down. And she said, mm-mm, mm-mm. At least she let the baby live. And we don't know her story nor her circumstance.
Right.
So we don't put our mouths on people when we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that has forever stayed with me from a child, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, yeah, she did at least give her life. It just put a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And then when I would get in trouble, um, my father was a trucker. So when he would come home, my mom would say she got in trouble or whatever, whatever. Because my mouth in school, it was always my mouth. I always spoke up. I always was for the underdog, all of that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
my father never. My dad is my best friend. My dad, we cool like that. And my father never put his hands on me. What my father did was my punishment was to read all volumes of the encyclopedias of Black history. And he said, you better know it because I'm going to quiz you.
Wow.
And he said, he said, this this is the stuff that the schools will never teach you, and I will not make it their responsibility. So I think all of that is
That
is
was
what
that
shaped
that was what
me.
was building you up for now.
Yes,
That
yes. And
was that
that's
was the making of your becoming.
come on, Jen,
You
come
know, you
on.
know,
And that's
it's
yes.
funny because I don't think people realize that everything we go through in life is
Mhm,
so when they say, when you ask God for things, he'll give it
mhm.
to you, just not in the way that you want it.
Yes.
So you want it
Yes.
to be all these things, and your dad wanted a doctor in the family.
Mhm.
You got it, just not the way that you expected it. He wanted you to be, and I'm not discrediting doctors,
No, no,
surgeons and stuff,
no.
but he
Mhm.
made you a powerful doctor.
Mm.
You are a powerful doctor for the Black community
Yes. And I'm
because God knows,
unapologetic.
and unapologetic about it because he knew
Mhm.
that this generation now would need you. So
Oh,
he
I
had to
hope
make
so.
sure
Mhm.
he gave you all those tools from childhood and a father
Mhm.
that would instill those things in you
Mhm.
so you could
Mhm.
pour out to the generation. That's when I came on here. When I was,
Mhm.
I like to read about people so I can get to know them because you won't know
Mhm.
unless you ask questions. So now when I
Yes.
get to read, I get to meet you and ask questions. And I was reading, I was like, this is my mommy,
Oh,
and
you
I
break my
never
heart
knew.
every time you
I,
say that. It's like,
I,
uh-huh.
ne- I never knew you didn't have kids. And that's what I was getting ready because I came home from work and I'm like, this is my mommy. This is my mommy. You
Mm.
are mother of this nation. And that's
Mm.
what God was doing. He was planting those seeds in you. You're already a mother.
So people used to say to me all the time, and you don't have to be like you don't have to have a baby to be a mom.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just remember children would call me like mom, like younger kids would
Yeah.
call me mom. And I'm like, oh, I am okay,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And then when I had teens living here, one of them called me mom, but the other ones, they were my family. So,
Yeah.
they called
Yeah.
me however. But again, if that's how God wanted to do it, I am okay with it. I am fine with it. And I today, even when writing, I sit back sometimes and I'm like, wow, some plant, some water, but now I'm in the season of God getting the increase. So
Yes,
that's how I look at it.
yes. It's your
Yeah.
story is it was from, like you said, end to beginning,
hmm
right? He already wrote your story.
That's right. That's
You
right.
setting those foundations, and you being such a wow, an author. I became an author when COVID hit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
Congratulations.
thank you. When I was
hmm
younger, I wanted to be a writer, but I was like, I didn't see anybody that looked like me, that was a colored woman that was an author. I was like, there's no way I could be
hmm
an author. How can I be an author? And when
That's
COVID
right.
hit, it was like God's like, hey, there's an author in you. Are you gonna
Come
start writing like
on.
I told you to, or are you gonna keep holding back?
Yes,
So
yes.
what inspired you to write the book Not Just a Slave?
Oh, that was an incident. And again, having have already been prepared,
Yeah.
right? So when my grandmother transitioned, it was a very, very, very hard time for me. Very hard time for me. And I left work and I couldn't function. I just needed time. So I after a while I said, you know what? I was doing some mentoring because I'm also a PK times two, right? So I was doing some mentoring in my parents' church and in my community, working with some of the young people. And I was hearing some of the stories that they were saying was going on in school. And I was like, are they making this up? Because they know I'm like real radical, right? Are
Yes.
they making this up and trying to trick me? Right? That's what I kept saying, right? So I said, okay, okay. So I went and I signed up to be a substitute teacher. I said, I'm gonna go check this out. Perfect opportunity. If I don't want to work tomorrow, I don't have to go to work, right? I pick
Right,
my
right.
days and
Yeah.
times. But when I got there, I started seeing that a lot of the stuff that they were saying was true. And then I started getting mad. I started watching how some of the Black teachers weren't getting promotions, but yet they wanted them to train the people that the white women
The
that
one getting
most
promoted.
oftentimes that they were hiring, right? And I'm like, whoa, whoa, hold up. So I started talking to a lot of people in the community. Again, because of my family, I knew, quite a few people. And so we started building our own community within the community, and it consisted of grandparents, parents, students, teachers, council people, faith based leaders. And we started going to see the superintendent on a monthly, like either it was either bi-weekly or monthly basis.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden I had them start coming to school board meetings where that was, and that was never happening before, right? And so now they all started seeing. Then we started doing like focus group conversations with dinner where students were actually sitting with their parents sharing what was happening in the school. And sometimes they didn't get a chance to eat dinner with their parents, right? Because parents might have been here, there, and the other. But now parents was really, and grandparents were like, wait a minute, hold up, what's happening?
Yeah.
So one day I took on an assignment and I walked into the door. And when I opened the door, I was nowhere prepared. When I opened the door, literally greeting me were pictures of enslaved people coming, like going this way, all the way down the hall, coming across, coming back up, and meeting me on both sides of the door. And I stood there and I was like, I was paralyzed. Really, I kept thinking to myself, what in the world
Mhm.
is going on here? And I felt, I don't even know the proper word of how I felt standing there in that space. space, right? But
Mhm.
I knew that I didn't like how it made me feel. And my mind immediately went to, okay, I have seventh and eighth graders that are about to come up in here. This school, um, um, it was diverse, but we had a heavy number of African American, Black student, brown students. And I thought, if this is how I'm feeling as a grown woman,
Yeah.
and I was getting, it just was making me very angry. And it, because I knew why this had happened. So the bell rang, and I saw actually stood in the hallway on purpose, in the middle of the hallway, so I could watch. And I saw the kids running around the corner, and then they would stop. I saw Black children putting their heads down. I saw anger beginning to emulate from their bodies. I saw white kids laughing.
Yeah.
I saw some white kids in shock.
Mhm.
Um, and so I, after seeing all that, I just was trying to get my class in the class.
Mhm.
And so when we got in, I immediately shut the door. And my first statement to them was, "You are not a slave. Our ancestors may have been enslaved,
Mhm.
but that's not where our ancestry began."
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't know what this teacher in this course left for work, but we're not doing work today. Because
Mhm.
most of the kids in there look like us.
Yeah.
And I said, we're not doing work today. And the question was posed to me right before what came in the classroom. The question was posed to me, and the person said, "Ms. Dean, am I just a slave?" And I was like, oh, okay, let's go, let's go. And
Yeah.
so I just told them, I said, these 2 blocks are our time, and we're going to have some real live upfront conversations. And I promised them, I said, I give you my word that you give me at least an hour or an hour and a half, and I promise you every one of these pictures will be down. And they were like, what? And I was like, oh, I promise you they're going to be down. And you will never deal with this again, not like this.
Right.
And so the first part of the session one, block one, we had we had an awesome conversation. I needed them to breathe. I needed I needed to deal with their psyche, their trauma that was in their body. I needed to give them a space. And the things that I heard,
Yeah.
and I'm like, these are, again, either seventh or eighth grade, but I know it was middle school. So then when the bell rang and they were still in my class for the second period, I said, now here's where, if you guys want to get in your groups, right, we're going to do something productive. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make a phone call, and I'm going to have them send me someone, like an aide, because I need to go make a phone call, but I need to do that in the office because I promised you something, and I'm going to keep my word. And so I left. They did, the school did. They sent an aide to my classroom, and I went up front. And when I went into the office, I said to the secretary, "You need to get the superintendent on the phone right now. Tell him no excuses. Is Miss Dean." And she was like, "What?" And so I was like, "You trust me, you would want to do it now." And so she did. And I got on the phone and I told him what happened and the pictures that were up. And I said, "You have 1 hour to have everyone, and you may not have that, to have every one of these pictures taken down. I have my friends who are journalists on speed dial waiting for the story. Now, how are we going to handle this?" And then I would say, before he was like, "Miss Dean, don't worry about it." And I said, "No, I am worried about it, because when at the end of this school day, make time for me, because I'm leaving here and I'm coming to your office. And I need so and so and so and so in your office." And so he did before the end of the second block of the period of my class. When those kids went to go out, there was no pictures. All the pictures. They looked at me like, yo. And I was like, and this will never happen to you again. I promise you. I give you my word.
Thank you.
My word.
I have to say thank you because as you're telling me the story, I have a teenager. He's
Mm-hmm.
13. And I never thought that I would have, well, obviously we know we have to have the conversation, but I
Mm-hmm.
never thought that I would hear him question me about why does he feel like he's being singled out. And when you talk about the school system, there was an incident that happened at school, and my son's I raised him to be very kind, a little bit too kind, and to
Okay.
always really take the high road. And no matter what people give to you,
Mm-hmm.
you keep extending love.
Mm-hmm.
Love conquers all. And, at one point he got very angry because, they kept making fun of his ears. My son has, ears that are a
Mm-hmm.
little bigger and they cock
Mm-hmm.
out. And
Mm-hmm.
they started to use the word monkey, started to call him a monkey, and just saying hurtful things to him. And of course it bothered him. He's a
Of
child, right?
course.
If
Yes.
it were you and I, it would bother us too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he got
Mm-hmm.
upset one day and he said, stop calling me a monkey. And he was angry and he
Mm-hmm.
cried and he yelled. It was the first time they've ever seen him angry, right? So his
Mm-hmm.
teacher chooses to use the word and say, "Oh, you look scary. You look scary."
Mm-hmm.
And it hurt his feelings. And he came home and he said, "Mom, why did she say I look scary?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because I'm black?"
Ah.
Man, my heart broke into, I can't tell you how many
Ooh.
pieces it broke into. It
Mhm,
broke into so many pieces. And I said, "You are not scary.
mhm,
You're a beautiful king. What did I tell you you are?
mhm,
Who are you?" I'm
mhm,
Chuck Von Evans, and I'm king, and I'm
mhm,
born with purpose, and
mhm,
I'm loved by God.
mhm, mhm,
And the next day I went to school and I went there professional because, they love to label us the angry black woman. And I went in with my
mhm,
dad and we sat there and we asked, why did you choose to use those choice of words? Because my son had to question me and say, well, you didn't call, let's just say the child's name is Christopher, which is a
mhm.
Caucasian child. You didn't call him scary when he lashes out and swears at you guys. But when my son expresses his anger out of frustration, there was no curse words, he looks scary. Oh, well, that was the first time that we've ever, seen him like that. So we were scared. I said, what were you scared of?
Yes. Yes.
He didn't raise his hand. He didn't touch you. He didn't swear at you. And he did not threaten you. So what were you afraid of?
Mhm.
And they said, oh, he could have came to us and told us about the ear thing. I'm like, he's been telling you guys forever.
That's right. That's
You got to
right.
teach them how to defend themselves, right? And he asked them to stop, and it turned into tears because now it's frustrating him.
Mhm, mhm,
So how are you handling that as a teacher?
mhm,
Do you know what monkey means when you call a black person monkey?
mhm.
Do you know where it stems from? Because if you don't,
Yes.
then there's a problem.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, Miss Simpson, we're very sorry about that. We'll make sure he gets help. What type of help are you talking about?
That he gets help.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
And lately, me and my partner have been thinking about it. We're like, this education system, they don't protect the black kids. You automatically start labeling them. You're
S-
not going to label my child.
That's right. That's
So
right.
hearing
And a
you
lot of
say,
times I want to congratulate you because when one of the girls lived here, I remember where I live, the school systems are predominantly white,
hmm,
and they want to act like, I mean, good as far as education, but a lot of those kids are drugged out. They
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, but you don't hear that, right? You don't. They don't
exactly.
put that in the news, and I remember I had to go up to the school for her for something, and the psychiatrist or psychologist or something, I don't know what he was. And I was sitting in the office, and he goes, "Man, I wish we had more parents like you."
Yeah.
Right? And I laughed, and I was like, "Oh, you're saying code words like you wish you had more black parents that
Ex-
came up here." Right?
he,
Like,
just say what you were
sure.
gonna. Just say it and don't ask. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. 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 And I just was like, and I said, now I don't know if you're saying because you think I'm this really nice lady who's coming up here, but that's Angeline. That's Angel. Don't let Angeline show up.
yeah.
For mine, because for mine, you will see a
Right?
whole other side. Absolutely.
Listen, I had to call the teacher yesterday and tell her, like, I had to say to her, Miss, you know me, and I don't play about my kids. You know me, and I don't play about my kids. So I expect you to deal with this and deal with it properly.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to let them know.
That's right.
I'm not a joke. You see the smile, you see the
Yes.
professionalism, but I can.
That
So,
turn quickly.
right?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
they say we're angry and stuff. No, you know what you're doing.
Mhm. Mhm. And even in higher education, they tried to peg me as that, and not just the white professors, the black ones too,
Yes.
right? Because that's
Hmm.
what my dissertation deals with a lot. And finally, I just said, okay, so yeah, I am angry. So what? Now what? I have a right to be angry.
Hmm.
And I'm going to walk in that righteous anger that you aided in producing.
Yep.
So I will not wear your negativism. I'm shifting it back on you. So now what? I am angry.
Yep.
So with what? Does that make me something different?
No.
And if it does, let's look at and examine you. So we could figure out what that makes you.
Right.
It
Like
was just
they
like,
always make we have no right to be angry. We have
hmm,
no right to express our anger like that. We're just supposed
yes,
to shut up.
yes. Hmm.
And your work delves deeply into concepts of oppression and plantation paradigm. Could you explain the model and the significance into understanding systematic oppression?
So I was trying to think the other day because but before the end of my first semester, I just started watching. So let me tell you, this is good. This is really good because this is God. 3 weeks before I started school, it was either 2 or 3 weeks before I started school, my cousins and I went to Cuba. Now, even that trip was not supposed to technically be because they were going someplace else in July, but I couldn't go because we was giving my dad a surprise birthday party, so I couldn't go.
Yeah.
That trip got canceled, and then she called me. One of my cousins was like, "Yo, you want to go? You want to go? We're going to go to Cuba now." And I was like, "Cuba? Of course I'm going."
Mhm, mhm.
So we get to Cuba. One of my other cousins says, "Well, and you and Jennifer are going to put together." She's the older one, right? So she tells us
Mhm,
what to do. So it was like, you guys are gonna put together like a calendar of events for us, right?
yeah.
So Jennifer and I, we doing what she tells us, right? So I was like, well, there's this plant. Let's go visit this Cuban plantation. We can go horseback riding. They have a place where you can eat, and I'm a fan of horseback riding.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know the depth of what I was about to enter. So long story short, um, our guide, the man tells our guide to go up front. He will ride like parallel, right, alongside of us. And I was the only one that had ever been horseback riding. So he's like, I want you to stay in the rear. We're
Okay.
like, okay, cool, no problem. When I tell you, Jen, it was, I still feel it sometimes when I talk about it, but it was It was a green that I never saw before. It was absolutely beautiful. It was life. It
Yeah.
was life. And it was like rows and rows and rows. And like you couldn't, you just couldn't see. Then they had these windmills. There was some thicket that sometimes we had to duck through when we were
Yeah.
riding the horses. But when we came to the other side, it was like, what? I didn't know they had an area for like you could do rum tasting. They were showing you how they make Cuban cigars and all that kind. They could have kept all that. I didn't even care. But it was that grass and those crops. And one of my cousins, she stopped. So when she stopped, I had to stop. And we were going this way, and she parked her like fixed her horse this way so she could look straight at. And she just kept staring and staring and staring. And I said, it's absolutely breathtaking, right?
Mhm.
She was like, oh my God, yes. And I said, and don't forget our ancestors. Don't forget, right? She was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. So she went to pull off, and I stayed back for a minute. So I thought, I still don't even know how long I stayed back. And I turned to my left and I looked. And I don't really tell this story that often, but because I know you will understand, I'm okay. And not that I'm okay, but I just tell it. Um, but I literally had a vision.
Mhm.
And in the vision, I saw our ancestors standing there. And I saw their clothes. I saw like some of the man's pants didn't even touch the ground. I saw some had shoes, some had the holes in their shoes. You might as well said they didn't have shoes. I saw different farming equipment like the hose and all that kind of stuff. I saw women with scarves on their head and having babies in the front and carrying babies on the back. I saw little children. But I kept staring at their eyes. And in my work, I I likened it to, you know how you know how when we acting up in the stores and our mom give us a look,
Yes.
right? You don't
Mm-mm.
have to say nothing,
You know that look.
right? The black mama look,
Yeah.
right? She gives us that. And we know what that means.
Yeah.
And so I kept staring at their eyes, but I could not understand. I talked about how I strove to hear what their eyes were saying. And I couldn't get a read on it. And I don't know how long I stayed in that state. Um, but I just remember like turning my head and going like, wait a minute, am I going crazy? Like, what is happening? And when I turned back again, they were gone. So I sat on a horse for a minute, like, what in the world? And I remember saying, I can't tell my cousins and stuff that they're gonna think I'm crazy. So, and I was like, I wasn't even rum. Like I wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh my God. That night, I wind up getting sun poisoning to the point where my eyes swelled shut and I couldn't go anywhere like the next day with them.
Mhm.
Fast forward 2 to 3 weeks later, I stepped into grad school. And that experience always was like on my shoulder and in here because I kept saying, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. And before the end of my first semester, I said, oh my God, I'm on an academic plantation.
Mm. Mm.
And I didn't realize I said it out loud. Right. So, so one of the professors was like, what? And I remember I got up, I took a marker, I went to the board because I'm a very visual person. I went up to the board and I just started drawing stuff like, okay, this just happened to us. This just happened to us. This just happened. Okay, let's go to the center. This is, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. And my classmates, a couple of them was like, oh my God, I get it. Now, a couple other ones was like, okay, Angeline, all right, that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But before the year was out, they got it. And I had one in my dissertation, I talk about white with this, his name is Baba Wakesa Matsumoyo. He's out of Georgia. And he coined this term and it's called white injected oppression, right?
Mhm.
Basically, it's like white supremacy and blackface, right? But instead of saying internalized racism, he was like, Angeline, when you use the term internalized racism, you re-victimize the victim, which is us, what has happened to us. So he called it white injected oppression, which I understood and could appreciate. And so I talk about how I went through this oppression from a black woman, a biracial woman, and an international black. And the one who put the nail in the coffin was a black man. And one day, the biracial woman, she was our executive director.
Mhm.
And I was just like, some of the students kept saying she's intimidated by you, she's jealous. But in my head, I kept saying, but she got hers, right? That's my thought process. Like, you got yours. You don't have nothing to be. I'm
Yeah.
coming to you for help, right? But I did see where she was going to, like, it was like a status quo type thought process, which
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing status quo about me. I recognize these systems, right?
Mhm.
To which she actually said one day in class, I've never had a student in all my 30 years of teaching that understands systems the way that you do. So some of the students was like, "Oh, she gave you a compliment." I'm like, "No, she didn't give me a compliment. What she told me was she knows that I see her and I
Mhm.
see what she's doing." So I'm not impressed by that at all.
Mhm. And that's
So,
probably why she didn't. Mhm. Okay.
and I wouldn't go along to get along. After, like,
Yeah.
after I started seeing stuff, I was like, "Oh no, ma'am,
Yeah.
no, no, no. This what I'm not doing." And they had brought me there. I was actually brought to the school for my organizing activism background. I was the first student. They was bringing me in for this, and I thought, oh, we're going to make changes, we're going to do some stuff. One of my first assignments was something that I had heard about and wanted to be a part of, again, until I saw it was status quo, business as usual. And I used to live in that neighborhood and had family that lived in that neighborhood. So I was like, do you think I am going to do
Yeah.
this crazy stuff to my family? Like, are you guys crazy? And I kept saying, and I won't be the black bobblehead girl that you send out,
No.
right, into the neighborhood and community while really you're raping them from behind. That's what we're not going to do.
Yeah.
And so that caused a lot of friction. So one day I was praying and I said, God, that's how it was. And I said, God, where am I? Like, this is annoying me. Like, I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding. And then he confirmed it. Like, and I heard it as I was waking up out of my sleep. I heard you're on an academic plantation. Now, mind you, prior to going, she told me, we bring you to these schools to pour everything out of you so that you could pour everything in. Now, I had another friend who got her PhD that had told me the same thing, but we weren't meaning the same thing that she was meaning, right?
Yeah.
So I said to her, I said, listen, I don't know what you think I'm here for, but I was in love with that scripture, not just free, but free indeed. And I said to her, I know I'm sent here to have an understanding of what does the, and I said not just free, and she goes, but free indeed. But she did not like me talking about God. She did not like me talking about scriptures. But I was like, oh, you know, a little something,
Yeah.
something, huh?
She knows
Right.
something, something.
So, you know, that was what started it. And then I remember they bought me for, before we had a new director that was coming on board, a white woman. And mind you, I had went through hell with some of the brown people,
Yeah.
some of the white folk, like everybody. But I just was like, I don't care. I'm not going to bow. Like I just am not going to do it. And you could tell on me, you could tell the president, you could tell the Pope, you could tell, I don't care who you tell,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it. So the director came, I had to have a meeting with the director and the biracial executive director. And in that meeting, the woman started lying. I was like, oh, hold up. She lying. That's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, the director said, you know, Angeline, I asked everybody, you know, everybody's talking about you in a negative manner. So I asked them, you know, everybody's talking about her, but who has stopped to talk to her? And I said, you know, I really want to thank you because apparently you're the only one with good sense in this program, right? Or
Yeah.
has some type of understanding of what access, success, equity, inclusion, like all they're
Okay.
not rhetoric to you.
Yeah.
And so she asked me, she said, I want to know what you learned. What have you learned in your first, it was the end of my first year. She said, what have you learned at the end of your first year? And the night before I heard the whiteness of academia and the making of a slave. And so that's what I told her. I said, I'm so glad you asked me that because it just came to me. I said, I learned the whiteness of academia, AKKK, and the making of a slave. She was like, so I said, oh no, you don't have to clutch your pearls. It's okay. It's okay. Like I'm going to be okay because now I know where I am. I know what happened, why Cuba, right? Why
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
happened.
Exactly.
So,
Everything. I tell you, everything. God is intentional about everything that He does. He never misses. He's never late or delayed. That
yes.
trip led you to this that you're in now. This book. So
Yes.
you said
So,
the book, The Whiteness of Academia and the Making of a Slave.
mhm.
The book gives me chills because I just I wish I had it in front of me right now.
I do too. My
I
publisher.
want to read it.
Yeah, my
Tell me
publisher's mom. I was
what am
supposed to
I gonna
tell
read? Like what am I looking forward to? And the readers, what are they gonna expect in this book? Like it literally shivers are running through my body when I say the title of this book.
Mhm. Well, I'm gonna tell you the full title. That's just the shortened version. The
Okay.
full title is The Whiteness of Academia and the Making of a Slave, a non-traditional Black girl's journey of the plantation as she screams, I was never down with OPP, the oppression plantation paradigm that sought to equate my Black body to other people's property. That was the title of my dissertation.
And listen, I need that book now. I need it right now.
So I'm going to publish it. So even, oh my God, it's horrible because even my up until my defense on March 30th, 2022, the Black man began to give me hell
Mhm.
since that day. And let me see, that was March 3, 5. It took an, mind you, I really didn't have anything that I had to correct in the book as far as like grammar mistakes and all that kind of stuff. Well, I had some mistakes that an editor didn't catch that I caught later, but 5 months they fought me. I graduated in May, walked
Yeah.
across the stage, and him and another Black woman said, no, we're not. All of a sudden, you had my work for a year and a half. I made no changes. I did nothing different. Any word that I used, nothing. You had all of that. And now all of a sudden, you had an issue with how I words that I used. You had an issue because I said how I was treated was violence. You had an issue. Now, mind you, I don't know if I put this part in the dissertation because I'm going to actually do a part 2 because those 5 months I thought going through the program was hell. Those 5
This
months
was
was like, what in the world? I
yeah.
was like, God, I'm still not done. I was like, and so it was, and I tell people the lesson that I learned, because I don't know, if your viewers will know about the Michael Brown case in
Yeah,
Ferguson,
I'm going to
Missouri.
ask you about that. Yes.
Yeah,
The
so I was
experience.
deployed. Yeah, so I was deployed there, right? And I thought about Ferguson and I was just like, wow, like when does this end? Right? When does
Mhm.
this end? And because I was there, and when I tell you people were coming in from all over the world supporting us, the Palestinians, everybody was marching with us, everything. And I had white police officers like in my face, like, you people, like it was just crazy to watch, right? It was a lot of white, it was mainly white folks. And so even when asked to do a little bit of conversation consulting and stuff with Freddie Gray in Maryland and stuff like that, I never had to deal with, I knew that our own could be like that, right? Because it happened on the plantation as
Yeah.
well, right? We had Black overseers.
Yeah.
Um, but I never, ever, ever dealt with it to that degree. And there was a professor out of New York, Dr. A. Johnson, and one of my friends, like, that's her hero. And but if you look for any of his work right now, everything is scrubbed off the internet. You can't
Really?
find his books. You can't find his name. You can't find none of it. But Dr. A. Johnson was a powerhouse. Like, people would come off the streets to sit in his classes, right? And he would teach. And I remember, and if people get offended, this is what he said, right? He would say, if a white supremacist is standing there to kill you, and he would say a coon, meaning, a black person that acts like white supremacy, who do you kill first? The white supremacist or the coon? So most people are taught to believe the white
White
supremacist.
supremacy, but it's the coon.
And he said, oh, no, no, no. You better kill him first, because he's going to fight you, and he's going to treat you worse to prove to his master, oh, master, I could beat her. I could beat him. Like, no, 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 no.
Mm.
And so that's why, even though and I knew they didn't want me to write it because I was really exposing my story. I could not find, when you're writing your dissertation, you have to find other literature and stuff. I could not find one autoethnographic, meaning telling your own story, story talking about um, what a black person went through to the degree that I told. And the beauty of my dissertation is no one could dispute what I was saying because I had emails for everything. And so in the book, because I want people to know that it is my dissertation. So, chapter 1 has to be written a certain way, chapter 2 has to be chapter 3. But even in that, the black man gave me creativity and said to me before he turned on me, said to me, I see why they say you don't fit.
Huh.
He said it, right?
Oh.
And then he tried to put the nail in the hammer the hammer in the coffin for me. So So, but I have to say thank you in some ways, because he allowed me to still be me in how I was writing.
Yeah.
And so I was, and my poetry is in there. It was just, it was like, okay, artwork. And I'm like, okay. So, imagine now all of a sudden I'm sitting with Jesus and he turns, then I'm sitting with Judas.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And
I wrote that in my acknowledgments. I said, I want to thank, I wrote it in acknowledgement. I want to thank Dr. Coaxum. I want to thank Dr. Brown for giving me a clear understanding of Jesus and sitting amongst Judas or something like that.
yeah,
And I just was
yeah.
like,
And it's funny.
yeah.
I want to say three things that I thought of when you were saying that.
Mhm.
And God would give us tests and send people to make us write the story exactly how he wants us to write it and not change it.
Mhm.
So those
Mhm.
people, you're right. Thank you, because
Yes.
I passed that test. They
Yes,
let me
Jen.
change the way that God wanted me to deliver it. You actually made me stronger and fueled me. It's like you added gasoline. You added gasoline to my
Yes.
fire.
Yes. I talk
Added
about that
gasoline.
too. You fueled me.
Yeah,
Yes.
you fueled me. Because I think about your saying, and I remember, like you said, you didn't see anybody write your story the way that you're writing it. And when I was writing my book, I kept holding back because I'm like, this is too raw. People are gonna be like, they're gonna scream when they read it.
Huh?
And as I was writing the book, it was almost like God was preparing me. Here are the attacks from
Huh?
now, because I want you to write that book exactly the way that I want you to write it, because somebody needs to
Huh?
read it that way and receive it the way that you wrote it. And I'm gonna let
Yes.
the attacks come now to build you up while you're writing the book. So when the book is published,
Huh?
you already
Huh?
know what's coming. I already made you stronger.
Yes.
You're a
Yes.
pillar.
Come on.
So he gave you all those people that were trying to test you and thought that they could change your words, but they just fueled you.
They did.
And another thing that I realized, it'll be your own people. And we see it so much happening right now,
Ooh.
especially on social media. Social media is a thing where you either wearing a mask, some people are wearing a mask,
Mhm.
or you're able to be yourself and cry out
Uh-huh.
for the
Uh-huh.
people that need to see the cry out. And
Yes.
you see people on social media now, especially our people, Black people,
Uh-huh.
we're taking it to social media and we're going against each other. We're no longer standing with our sisters. We're no
Uh-huh.
longer fighting for our brothers.
Uh-huh.
We're neither coming together as a community.
Yes. Yes.
We're allowing the people up here
Huh?
that think they're above us to tear
Come
us down as
on.
a community. And that's exactly what's happening. Is you see
Uh-huh.
the celebrities that are talking about the things that they experienced, but their own brother and sister chose money over them,
Come
and
on. Come on.
integrity and love and power.
Come on. Real power.
Do they understand? And this is the thing, and I was so excited to see you today, because I'm like, do they understand the power that we have, the voice that we have, what we've done already, and what we continue to do?
Yeah.
But you are selling out your sister for money and
Uh-huh.
for fame.
Uh-huh.
The power
Uh-huh.
holds more weight than the money.
Yes. Yes.
The love that we
Yes.
spew into each other.
Uh-huh.
And your book, you talk about it and you said it. This is what's
Yeah.
happening right now. It's the
Uh-huh.
end to get to the beginning,
Yes.
because that's what
Yes.
happened at the end. They were turning against each other,
Uh-huh.
they were selling each other out to slave masters.
Come
And this
on.
and today is the day where they're doing it, but in a different form.
That's right. That's right.
Come
And I'm
on, what
talking
are we
about
teaching?
all of
And
it.
this is why I said, what are we teaching our kids?
And that's
No,
it. That's it.
since when is
That's
it okay to watch somebody else clown our Black sister instead of standing up for her and saying, Queen, I got you?
or hit her in the face with a brick, men, and think it's funny. I'm just like, what?
And the queens, we are not supporting our black men anymore, and they need us. I know that we've caused so much pain to each other,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
but where are
Yeah.
we for each other? We got to understand what we go through. And it's funny because I wanted to quote this. I saw, I don't know if you know some Killer Mike,
Yes.
and he recently did an interview on the Breakfast Club where he
Mm-hmm.
was talking about why it's important to marry a black woman. Some may not agree, and that's fine, but his
Mm-hmm.
opinion still stands because we don't
Yes.
understand that there are certain things that the black man and the black woman will go through, but only we
Mm-hmm.
can understand that. So when we enter a room and we nudge each other and we say something about the energy feels off,
Come on. Come on. Come
only
on.
our black brother and sister can understand that.
Yes.
When we
Yes.
say it's time to move and the person's like, why are you moving funny? Our black brother and sister will understand that
Yes. And won't question.
and won't question it because they understand.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are saying, oh, you're just saying whatever. And he's like, no, you have to understand what I'm saying. Your mind,
Come
your
on.
knowledge has to be
Yes.
at that level to understand what I'm saying. My black
Yes.
daughter, when she wants the straight hair, because they
Mm-hmm.
tell her that her puff is not
Come
proper,
on. Yes. And I
it's not
see that all the time.
acceptable. Where are the black queens that are telling my daughter, you are wearing your crown
That's right.
and
That's
wear it
right.
proudly
Mm-hmm.
and love your
Mm-hmm.
coils because your coils are beautiful. Your skin
Yes.
is gorgeous. And this is what our society is going and they're allowing. And forgive
Mm-hmm.
me, but it starts with the white. Because even at work, I'm at work and, when COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's getting the COVID shots. Everybody's running around going crazy, thinking, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen? That was all a test. Are you connected to God or are you not paying attention?
Mm-hmm.
When
Mm-hmm.
the
I
world's
fully.
on fire, do you
Mhm.
still believe in me?
Come
Will
on,
you still
sis.
call on me and will you still get on your knees?
Come
And will you
on.
believe that I am your healer? I am the cure. I am the source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I if I'm not putting it in my kid's body, why am I going to put it in mine? Because at the end of the
That's
day,
right.
I am the person that's going to take care of them the best. So if I'm no longer here, who's going to take care of them?
Mm-hmm.
I was told at work that somebody said to me at work, I understand that black people were used as test monkeys back in the day, but times are different. And you need to get this shot to protect your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I will not.
How very white privilege of you
Right.
to
And then,
tell
and then,
me
and,
what I should do.
right. And then I was told, make a
Mm-hmm.
choice and stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, of course I stood on my choice. So what are you telling me to make a choice and stand on it for? I stood on it. And then when I
Right.
stood on my choice, you started to treat me differently because the black girl chose not to get the COVID shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Yes. I fully 100% agree.
So your
Mm-hmm.
book, I'm excited. And guys, I'm going to leave it in the caption because I need you guys to get a copy of this book. I'm
Yes.
going to
Brittany and
leave
I
her in,
actually, I'm
I'm
sorry,
going to
Brittany and
leave
I
it.
actually just spoke
Sorry,
today.
sorry. Go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm gonna leave your Instagram, your website, all your contact details. Get the book, order the book. We need to read it. We need to go back to the source. Stop letting them clown us. And we gotta stop clowning each other.
Yes. Yes.
Power is in us and breathes every we walk with power. We enter a room. Our presence reeks.
That's right. That's right. That's right. They kept telling me, Jen, they kept saying, girl, just play the game. Just play the game.
Play the
And
game.
I said, well, what do you do when the game relegates you to game?
Mm,
What do you do then? And
mm,
they looked at me like, what? I said, you're talking about white people and white supremacy and how they dehumanized us. Don't you understand that every time you tell me to play a game, you want me to dehumanize myself
right,
so that I can make it acceptable for you to do it.
right. But they forget the game changes. So let me ask you a
Honey.
question. You're turning against me. for
Mhm.
them, what do you think's gonna happen to you? There'll be another one, and then you're gonna get booted out.
There's a clip on Facebook. It says something from the film Trick Baby, 1972. I advise everybody to go on Facebook and watch that clip. It is exactly I actually, even in the introduction, I put it because I wrote the introduction, and I put it in the book, and I talk about just that. And
Trick baby.
it's actually Trick Baby, yeah. And it's actually like a white conservative and a white liberal, and they're all at the dinner table with their family, and black people are serving them, and they're
Mm,
having this conversation like, oh, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Let them think they're one of us.
mm,
Because then, we'll give them what do they call it? Comfort creatures. We'll give them few comfort creatures of life to allow them to think that now they're one of us. And then they're no good to their communities,
yep,
right? So
yep,
then when they step out of hand, we throw them away, and
yeah,
then they can't go back to their communities. And so they'll have to do, and that's the whole slave process,
yep.
right?
And
Again, over.
go back to and you know what? 2024 is a year of truth and
Come on.
exposure.
So let me
Truth
tell
and
you,
exposure.
I have been riding on cloud 29 since the Cat Williams and Monique interview, honey.
Girl,
I
and
have been,
it's so
especially Cat
funny
Williams.
because they labeled her as the the angry black woman, but now look at it. Taraji. So many other black women are coming out and saying these things happen to them. But when Monique says it, she's the angry black woman because you know what? At the time, nobody was standing with her, so it was easy to tear her down.
Well, when I was in school, so in my cohort, it was about 8 of us. So
Hmm.
say maybe 7 or 8 of us, but there was only one white girl. The rest of us, black and brown.
Yeah,
And let me tell you, to that white girl's credit, at the end of that year when she first started, like, oh, I see what you're talking about. When she
yeah,
caught it, she fought harder, just as hard as just a few of, because a couple of the black girls was like, oh no, we want to talk about the people behind their back, but we're not going to stand with you. But we will reap the benefits of what you fight for,
you
right? That type
understand?
of thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
But we're activist teachers. I'm like,
Hmm.
right? So it was just very interesting. And yesterday I was sitting at my desk, and one of my friends she's an activist from Australia, right? And she's here. And I'm on a Zoom, and all of a sudden my phone beeps, and I'm like, who? And I'm looking at the text, and she sends me a text. She goes, I'm watching the Cat Williams interview right now for the first time, and I'm almost done. It finally hit me why people don't like you. Well, first of all, when I read that, I couldn't stop laughing, right? So she goes, it finally hit me why people don't like you.
Hmm.
And then she goes, so she hits sends, and she writes back, and she goes, you're our Cat Williams of today. So when I got off that Zoom, I was like, honey, I hope you know that was the greatest compliment, because his interview is like almost at 59 million. And
Yep.
I will say at least 1 million of them I watch, because I keep going
Right.
back
Kept
to it,
watching it.
right?
Right. Me too. Because
Yes.
I'm telling you, when you are a change maker,
Mm-hmm.
a cycle breaker, generational
Mm-hmm.
curse breaker,
Come on,
you're
come
a
on.
truth teller and you're living for God and you have a purpose, oh, they won't like you.
No.
Oh, they won't like you. Your presence will turn them off. Their nose is turning up at you and everything.
Tell me the name of your book.
So I have a couple and I have two ebooks that I'm gonna finally drop soon. I'll share it
All
with you.
right.
So it's
Yes.
called Commitment to a Deceitful Liar. But I'll share details with you offline because this interview
Okay.
is all about you, baby.
I know, but I want to support your book as well.
Thank you. I will send it to you for sure. I promise.
Yes. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. And I'm actually going to send, when you were talking about your son, I was like, I'm going to send you the book, not just the
When
slave.
I'm coming over there and we're going to meet and I'm going to bring the kids because they
When are
need,
you
you know,
coming?
I'm hoping to come in March. You know what's funny?
Oh.
I when I came to Atlanta for the first time,
Mhm.
I I can't even explain what was in my spirit. Walking
Mm.
through Atlanta and going to the Martin Luther King, I was like, I was like,
Yes.
I feel like I'm walking in history. Like I'm walking with my ancestors. Like my spirit just rose. And I felt
Yes.
peace and I felt love and I felt like somebody was hugging me. And I
Mhm.
said, I have to bring my kids here.
Mhm.
They need
Mhm.
to experience this. It's a
Yes. Yes.
feeling that you cannot deny.
So I went to the, you talking about the Civil Rights Museum,
Yes.
right? Yes.
Yeah.
I actually went there this year on Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
And I went with one of my friends. She was like, "Girl, you like a kid in the candy store." I said, if I didn't have to catch my plane back home, I would have spent more hours in there. And so I understand what you're saying, because that's what that was. It was like a cloak.
Mm-hmm. Like wrapped, it just snugged you tight as soon as you got there. And I was like, I mean, my friend that I went with, she didn't, let me explain something. When you are elevating spiritually and
Mhm.
your connection with God,
Mhm.
different, and you're not aligned with the people that can say
Mhm.
they know
Mhm.
what that feels like, it
Mhm.
will throw you off
Yes.
emotionally, physically, and everything. So, she
Mhm.
wasn't experiencing the same thing I was. So it wasn't, I was enjoying it, but I was not in the right element because she wasn't enjoying it the way I was. So I,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
definitely need to go back for sure.
Yes. Yes. No, I totally get it. Yeah, my friend
Yeah.
was like, "Girl," I was like, "Woo, you can't breathe. Can't you
I
feel
know.
it?" Like,
It felt so good. Like
yes.
I didn't want to
Yes.
leave, but all I'm thinking about is my kids. I need my kids to be here. I need them to see us. I need them to understand.
Yes.
You,
Yes.
you
Yes.
guys know who you are. Your black is powerful. Your black is
Yes.
beautiful. And everybody, they need to go there.
Yes. And just because we are pro-black doesn't, and I tell people all the time, because I have people, "Do you hate white people?" And I'm like, "Oh my God.
No.
My
No.
pro-black does not make me anti-white."
No.
And the thing that got me too, that shocked them at my dissertation defense, I never said that my other grandmother was white.
Mm.
So when I put pictures up, I had a picture of my black grandmother and a picture of my white grandmother.
They were shocked.
Their faces were like, "What?" And I talked about how both of my grandmothers were grandmothers. They
Yeah.
loved me differently, yet they loved me unconditionally.
Yeah. I have
But it was
a
so
lot
good.
of white friends. I have white family members. My friends, their kids are biracial, and it's good that you could educate them
Mhm.
because I have friends where before they weren't paying attention to the fact that your kids are half black. You're paying attention
Mhm.
to the fact that okay, my child is biracial. They're mixed with this and this, but now as they get older, and now
Mhm.
looking at them funny and saying certain things to them. Now you want to know more
Mhm.
about the black history
Mhm.
so you can help them
Mhm.
as they grow in life, right? So it's
Right.
good when they see that, and now we can educate
Mhm.
each other.
Yeah,
We need
yeah.
to
That's part
go.
of my next.
Yeah,
That's what Brittany's working. We're working together on, because I was like, "Britt, I have to create a space for our babies.
yeah, we
I
have
have to.
to.
I
Yeah,
have to."
biracial,
So,
black children, they go through it too. We have to create a space for them where they can grow and no longer this colorism thing, dark skin, light skin. We need to stop all
oh
that.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
nonsense. We need to wipe that out and retrain our minds to get out of that. This is what they taught us to turn us against each other.
Mhm,
We're not
mhm.
living by that anymore.
Right. But I do want to say something, and this is the educator in me, because I
Yeah.
heard you use the word Caucasian.
Yeah.
We will never use that word again.
Okay.
Okay. Because Caucasian is really not a word.
Hmm.
Caucasian is an invented word to denote white superiority
Okay.
and black inferiority. And it came from, I can't think of his name right now. I've been trying to think of what it is. German dude. If I'm not mistaken and remember correctly, it took him like 3 weeks or something like that to get his dissertation, some crazy short amount of time. And he studied skulls, Caucasoids,
Okay.
and Caucasus in the Caucasoid Mountains, right? And um, he determined that, first of all, who's going to sit in all these skulls? Right there, I was like, something a little off, right? And determined that the whiter skulls belong to white people, which put them up here. And then he started this whole hierarchy. And of course, we were at the bottom.
Right. Hmm.
So if
So
people want
funny
to know
because
more,
I started using that word Caucasian. I used to say white, but then I'm like, I was conditioned to use the word because I didn't want to sound out of pocket saying white people. But you know what? Thank you for that. Thank you for that because I never knew that.
if you Google, so Dr. Joy DeGruy in her book Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome, she talks about some of that. And if you Google Patricia Moses, Dr. Patricia Moses, and then just put the word Caucasian, she goes into it. She tells you, I mean, it's a very easy read, short read, and she tells you why we don't use that word.
It's a beautiful thing when you're able to learn and
Mhm,
receive the information. And I've been doing that over the last 3 years. I need to know more about my history. I need
mhm.
to be connected to people who are not afraid to hit the topics
Yeah,
and dissect
yeah.
them and really go into deep conversation. Because
Mhm,
sometimes you have friends where you're talking about it and they're uncomfortable. Why? Let's talk about it.
mhm.
But we're not arguing. We're
Right.
learning together.
And not only are we learning in some spaces, we're unlearning
Unlearn.
things that
That's
we
it.
have
I'm
been learned. We have learned.
unlearning to relearn and be open to learning and not sticking with what we only know.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
society has taught us so much that we live by it. That's why I called this podcast Life's Deceit.
Yes.
Because we stand by too many deceitful lies that we were fed.
Yes.
And we're,
Yes.
we're, we're so caught up and tied to it that we won't even try to step out of it and say, you know what? I'm going to unlearn all of that, wipe it out of my brain and learn something new from other people. Read.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's why I
Yes.
called it Life's Deceit. So when you came on, I
I
was
loved it.
like, oh, I'm excited. I didn't even get to ask you all the questions I was formulating in my mind because we had such a great conversation. Every time this happens to me,
We have to do
and
a
I'll
part
go, Life's Deceit is about all aspects of life because there's so many lies to life. Like
two.
for me,
Yes.
when I was raped, I was told, don't tell anybody. When you start a relationship, don't tell your partner because you become what's the word they use? They basically said I was a write-off. No man was
Mhm.
gonna want me. They were gonna be
Mhm.
scared. They were gonna say, "Oh, it was your fault." They were gonna formulate their own opinions on
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I I went into like a dark mode,
Mhm.
believing these lies and picking at myself and telling myself that maybe I caused it on myself. It was me. Maybe I gave the wrong
Mhm.
signal to my own uncle.
Mm.
There's so many lies, and we
So
need
I
to
want to
start.
no,
Go ahead. No,
you
go ahead. Go
done?
ahead. Yeah, yeah.
No, I really want to thank you for that because I do. Let me say that. I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for expressing that. I want to thank you for calling that out. I want to thank you for your bravery and your boldness and the tenacity and your freedom, right? Your free indeed moment.
Yeah.
Because when they kept telling me, I knew I couldn't tech technically I could, but I knew I couldn't say the names of the people who did these things to me. So the pseudonyms I made sure came as close
Yeah.
to anybody. If you ever wanted to identify, according to the black man. Anybody can figure this out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh well, whatever. They did it, right? So I said, I said, let me ask you something. I said, you brought me here because I'm an activist. So then he told me activists don't call people out. And I was like, yeah, you trying to play with my head, right? Now, mind you, this man is also a pastor.
Mm.
Okay. So that was a double punch in my face for me, right?
Yep.
Um, and then the Holy Spirit was like, now you see why so many of my people ain't free? Their leaders aren't free, right? So I
Girl.
was like, okay, I got you, I got you. And so I said, so let me ask you something. If somebody raped me here, because in some forms it has been rape, right?
Yes.
So you're telling me I can report the rape, but I can't say the name of the rapist, and then you're telling me that that's ethical? That's ethics? In what world do you come from, right?
Yeah.
So that's why when you just like so boldly, like boom, 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 I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And that's why when they tried to talk me out of, oh, Angeline, don't you want to write about your community stuff? No, I know what I want to write about. Stop asking me.
Yeah.
Right. And I knew I had to, because like you said, our kids have to know these stories. Our kids have to have an understanding of, what is really happening. And the saddest part is now it's us
Now it's us.
doing it.
It's
Mhm.
us. We can't keep hiding things from them because they need
Yes.
to know. Because when they're
Yes.
faced with situations, who told them? No, who told them? Nobody told them. My mom didn't teach me anything.
Mhm.
She didn't teach me how to protect myself. She didn't teach me how
Mhm.
to love myself. She didn't teach me how to
Mhm.
receive love. She didn't
Mhm.
teach me how to
Mhm.
be a mother. But I forgive
Mhm.
her because she wasn't taught how to do that either.
I was just getting ready to say her own trauma.
Yeah, her own
Yeah.
trauma. She's still going through her own trauma. And I give her
Mhm.
grace and I will always give her love because I understand. But now that I have the knowledge and resources, it's
Yes.
me.
Yes.
I'm up front row and center, and it's time for me to do
Come
the
on,
work that
sis.
God
Come
called me to
on.
do. And I'm going to do
That's
it for
right.
my babies, and I'm going to do it for my mama because guess what? She may
Mhm.
not have done it for me, but I'm going to do it for her so she knows that she can do it
Yes.
for self.
That's right.
And that's what our people need to realize.
Mhm.
No more
Mhm.
blaming, no more pointing fingers, no more saying, well, because this happened, I can't do that.
Mhm.
But God gave you the
Mhm.
will and the power so you can do that.
Mhm.
And it's us that are going to show you guys that you can and you
Mhm.
will because you
And I
are.
think though too, I do want to say this, that we do have to have, and I think you may have said it, we do have to have, just like he has grace with us, we have to have grace with them, because
Yep.
some of the things that people have gone through have been so horrific
Yep.
that the pain is so entrenched to even be able to cut through this much of a
Yeah.
layer,
It's
you
true.
know, and I've seen it, I've seen that with different people, and it's like, wow, this
Yeah.
this stuff is real. It's very, very, very real. Um, and then when I think, when I see like a Cat Williams one there,
Right?
and I can relate, because it's like, yeah, yeah, Joe, he,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you
Right?
know, and I had to laugh. So
Wait,
I
you
think
know what's
it's
funny?
funny.
People like us and Cat Williams, we have that freedom. Our mind's free. Right? And I said it the other day because somebody messaged me about the podcast, and I'm growing it, right? And she said, "You have no idea. Your podcast did so much for me." And I said, "Really?
Mhm,
Truly?" And I'm questioning,
mhm,
like, "No, me, really?" But then, I
mhm,
said she asked me how's the relationship with my mom, and I said, "I
mhm,
love my mom to death.
mhm,
Can't
mhm,
imagine what she's still going through mentally. I'm
mhm,
free from it, and she's
mhm,
not. So I owe
mhm.
her grace
That's what I'm
and
saying.
patience, right? Because we don't give that to each other as Black
Mhm.
people. We just expect, oh, well, you did this, so
That's
you're
right.
no. Wow,
Get over it. I
right? Get
can't.
over it. Stop telling people to get over it. You don't know what they went
Yes,
through because you weren't there. You never
that's right.
experienced it.
That's
But give
right.
them grace where you don't understand.
And I'm gonna tell you, even from the 3 years of this experience, from I had to be. I had to say, like, it wasn't as much psychological for me at until I started helping other people. Like I had a one friend, she was like, Angela, I got Bell's palsy. The doctor said it's from the stress. And I was getting phone calls. Can you pray for me? Can you this? Can you? And I was like, yo, then research was saying that that's what happens to us as Black and brown people in these spaces. And I'm like, so now these people know what they're doing to us, and yet it's okay for them to still do it. And I just was like, this is wow. But I'm going to tell you, it started that whole physiologically your health
Yeah.
that day when I came home, and I say they cheated me out of so much. But when I came home, my defense day, I came home, when I tell you I was in pain like you never, I've never, I was having shooting pains go all through I was curled up in a fetal position, and it was like that. And I still sometimes, and I'm gonna give you a sneak preview to part two. I just found out last week. Yes, yes, yes. Let me tell you. I'm gonna give you a sneak preview to part two, because I included in the introduction of part one. Nobody but God, was on my computer at midnight,
At midnight.
literally at midnight,
In the midnight
right?
hour.
No, you know that scripture, at midnight?
Yeah.
Midnight, right? So I was looking at something that, that I had written, but I couldn't edit. And I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, why can't I edit? I pulled my other computer out, and it was charging, so I couldn't do something. I had my work computer here, and I was like, what is going on? Couldn't edit. Then all of a sudden, nothing. Now this didn't even make sense. I heard it. Hit the comments button. And in my head, you know how we process, I'm like, well, how dumb is that, Angeline?
Yeah.
Why would you hit the comment button to edit, right? I hit the comment button. The Black man is sharing my work with the woman that I spoke about in the book. There's two comments that pop up. Now, I know that she knows that I also have an embargo on my dissertation until 2025, which means nobody has permission to read my work. So you just violated several ethics. So I just literally 3 days ago, wrote up a 7-page complaint with about 6, 7, 8 attachments. Next week or the week after, I'm going to go file harassment and lack of, and they didn't allow me to have my academic freedom, because now you sent me into research mode. So
Mm-hmm.
now I started finding all this stuff. According to your college, I could have even said you could not stop me from academic freedom. If you didn't want to sign off, then you shouldn't have been on my committee.
Right.
He doesn't even know certain things. And I just was like, Mom, I don't believe that God allowed me to see that for no reason at
No,
all.
he didn't.
So the story's still not over.
Yep.
So I didn't include her name originally, but because you violated my work intentionally, I screenshot, when comments, your names come up,
Yeah.
I screenshot it, and now it's in the book. So now I didn't tell on you, you told on
You told on
yourself.
yourself. Oh, you see how God just be. I told you, God always shows up on time.
And you see how the enemy will make a fool out of you?
Mm-hmm.
Shout outs to Janelle Monáe in that movie. I can't think of the name of it, but where she's an activist and
Mm.
she gets kidnapped on the plantation,
Oh my
and
gosh,
they
what's
take her
that
back
movie
into the
called?
plantation. I don't know, and I always forget it. I hate that.
Now you're gonna make me go in my bed tonight and be searching up what's that movie again?
I'm gonna do the same thing. But before she gets kidnapped to a plantation, she's in activist mode, and somebody says, well, how do you deal with knowing that these people are getting away with all of this stuff. And it was that line that broke something in me to, like, when you get to intervals, you'll get like another push to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
It was seeing that movie. One of my friends, April, she was like, "You got to read this movie. You got to listen to this movie. Watch this movie." And it was a line where she said, "Their arrogance will always bring them down." And that's what that was.
And look what happened to her.
And it ain't over.
You couldn't leave it alone, could you? You couldn't. No, you couldn't.
You just had
You
to
just
read
had
my
to,
word.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I wanted
So,
to ask you about your interchange system. How do you envision your consultancy company
oh,
contributing to,
intersystems.
yeah, intersystems? How
Mhm.
do you envision it contributing to dismantling the hegemonic structures and fostering community healing?
So what I'm looking to build right now is, in school. I kept talking about a communiversity. I never knew that Sankofa had used that word, and they do some things with community and research and stuff like that. But I want to do something a little bit different. But I love the word, right? So I talk about a communiverse, because I believe that we know what we need,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm working with Brittany now to build something for adults and build something for, maybe, I don't want to say it's an online school, but it will give that feel,
Yeah.
um, for them. And I'm not going to say it's not an online school, because people keep telling me you need to do a school because some other things that I did last summer with some kids. But and so I want to build that, and I want to build it to where there's like 6 months of intense sessions, um that deal with like cultural awareness. And so I say anybody can be a part of it, but it is predominantly for us. And so in those sessions we do self-awareness, potential or purpose. We deal with some, we do some reflexivity, because I feel like we don't search within
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
question ourselves a lot. And so and you talked about masks. I'm going to actually send you a picture in case you want to use it for this podcast. My presentation, a dissertation, I had 10 different masks, and I talked about what it was like to be Black on this
I saw that
plantation.
on Instagram. Yes, please send that to me.
Okay.
I
Yes.
you align so much with this podcast. You don't, we haven't even gotten to the juicy part yet, and I need you to come back. I need a
I
part two, a part three, a part four, a part five.
would be more than happy. So that's what I want to do with intersystems. And so I did a lot of work around civic education, because I feel like in our communities, first of all, in our communities, we really never had civic education even taught in schools.
Yeah.
So we don't understand how policies work. We don't understand how laws and bills and resolutions and all of these things keep our communities in our, who
In a
was it, Claude
chokehold.
Anderson? Hmm?
In a
Chokehold.
chokehold. Yes.
Yes, yes. And so these are the things that many of these politicians are banking on,
Yeah.
that we stay in those ignorant spaces. So how do I build that communiverse? And then after those 6 months, we can do some type of graduation type thing. But what I want to do is use the model, because I have so many friends that are like dope activists that are
Mhm.
creating different models where we do heal, um, around housing, around the penal system. I have friends that are juvenile lifers, that the work that they were doing before they even got out of jail was astronomical. So that system, Black maternal health system, economics, banking, like I have people. So how do we, so once we do that healing and knowledge of self, and
Yeah.
creating those spaces where we can commune together, right? And then especially I want it to be a space, especially for activists, because I think that most oftentimes we don't have an understanding of systems. So that's one of the things that I do want to teach and talk about, these
Yeah.
systems and how they are designed to work systematically. And what does it mean when I say the political economy of the Black body, and how our bodies every day that we wake up, they are political. Having served politically, I know what I'm talking about, even in that area. And so I'm working now with how do we bridge all of this together and form our own communiverse and communiversity, because look, Hollywood is begging for awards from the Grammy. I ain't begging nobody for nothing. How do we build our own?
Yeah, I noticed that everybody's enjoying these accolades and stuff, but how do we build our own? We ain't begging
Yeah.
for nothing. We ain't begging for no award. We're not begging
Mm-mm.
for acknowledgement. We're going to build
Right.
our own
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
really
And
not.
I'm finding that people are on that tip now.
Yeah,
Like,
and I
we're
love
not going
it.
to keep doing this.
I love it.
Yes.
I love what they're
Yeah.
doing because we need our people to do this for each other. We can't wait for them to give us things.
Remember that movie Spike Lee? And at the end, he was like, "Wake up!"
Oh yes.
That's
What
where we
is that
are.
movie called now? You're gonna have me up all night searching movies.
Wait a minute, because my friend and I just talked about that movie. Yes, 2 days ago. Girl, it's like after 9. It's been a long day.
Yeah, I know, right? Shut
Can't
down mode.
even. Yeah,
So
yeah. But this was
lastly,
fun. Hmm.
how do you balance your role as an educator, entrepreneur, and advocate for social change? And what advice can you give others looking to make positive impact on our communities?
It's a good question. Um, so sometimes I don't always. Let me just be real upfront and honest. Sometimes I don't balance well. Um, but I have learned that self care is the key. I have learned that I'm not God. I have learned that Rome wasn't built in a day. I have learned um, that I can't sacrifice family, friends, and time all the time for a cause and a purpose. And I'm still learning, right? I have not arrived. Um, and say the second part of the question again.
Oh, what type of advice would you give people who are trying to basically build positive change for our community?
Find like minded individuals because you're going to need them.
Yeah.
Um, that's building that village because you're going to need it. Uh, be very intentional in what it is that you want to do. And I say that because you have to know which battles to fight and which battles to leave alone and win.
Yep.
Right? Are you looking to win? There are times you're looking to win a battle, but then there's times that you're looking to win a war.
Yeah.
And so you have to have an understanding of where you are and what it is that you're trying to do. You cannot do this by yourself at all. Because as you said, uh, that division will take you out. Because that's what they tried to do to me too. They were telling people, stay away from her. When I would say things in class, they would ignore me, the professors, which then just made me say it again and again. And because then it became a game for me. So I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So I just would do it more and more and more. But I could also do that because I had an inside village and I had a major network outside village.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. Develop that village. Um, have that knowledge of self. Self love is so important. So important. And we really do have to take, in order to do this work, you do have to begin to unpeel the layers of self. Because if not, at some point in time, I promise you, some type of trigger will hit and
Yes.
you will be triggered from
Yep.
something that you have not dealt with.
Yep.
And so you never want that to bleed out loud onto other people. Um, and so that would be the advice that I give.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
had such an amazing time with you tonight. This was
Likewise.
this was meant to be.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Was worth the wait, right?
Yeah, it was. It really was. Because before I was like, oh my gosh, I missed it. When am I gonna meet her? I'm so glad that it's in this season right now when we need it. We need
Mhm.
each other's voices. We need the world to see people like us. Please
Yeah.
leave all your social media information so people can follow you, reach out to you if they need to, and look out for your book.
Yes. So let me say on Facebook, it is Angeline, and then in quotations, it's Angie and then Dean. On LinkedIn, on I think it's Twitter, LinkedIn, and IG, it's Dr. Angeline Dean. Because I was just like, just make this, try to make everything one.
Yeah, one. Me too.
Um, and so today we talked about Brittany's actually coming to the East Coast
Okay.
next week because we have to pack a courtroom to free a brother
Free
who was
Tyler Wallace. Yeah.
wrongly convicted for 26 years. So we're going to be doing that next week. And so she's going to be putting like the link on my for pre-ownership. Pre-ordering on my website. All of that is getting revamped. The t-shirts, the mugs, like all of that stuff, merchandise, and all of that should be on there too. So we're hoping to get that done next week.
Okay. I will definitely put all the links to your
Okay.
website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, the books in the caption so people can click and get connected with you. And I
Yeah.
can't wait to have another episode with you. It was a pleasure and an absolute honor being in your presence tonight. Mommy,
Yes.
Queen, you
Yes.
are our mother.
I really do. I don't take that for granted. I
You
don't take
are.
that light. I really don't. And I really do appreciate you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode with the amazing, phenomenal powerhouse, Dr. Angeline Dean. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Guys, as we continue to learn about Black History Month and we celebrate this amazing month that we have to, really reflect on Black history, I would honestly love to say that, as Dr. Angeline and I said, we have to be in a position to unlearn and be ready to learn. We got to unlearn all the toxic things, the lies, and the things that we're fed and relearn the truth. A lot of times we hear things and we stand by it because that's all we know. You don't have to stand by that's all you know. There are so many resources, so many things, so many people, so many books that you can read and learn, get the knowledge that you need, and grow. What are you planning to leave behind when you leave this earth? What are the seeds are you planting? What message are you leaving behind? What legacy are you creating? Money is great to have money. It's great to have material things. But what's the legacy? What do you want to be known for? Think about that for the rest of February. What do you want to be known for? Say your name. Look in the mirror and be like, I am Jen Simpson. I want to be known for the legacy I want to leave behind, the seeds that I'm planting, and who am I doing it for? You guys are all born for purpose, greatness. You believe in yourself, and if you believe in yourself, believe in your own legacy that you are building. You guys, thank you for tuning in to Life's Deceit with me, Jen Simpson. Hey, before you go, please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Guys, leave a comment. Tell me how I did. Tell me if you enjoyed this episode, if you have any questions, or if there's any topics that you guys would love for me to dive into and dissect. I'm all ears and I'm ready to do it. Thank you guys and have a wonderful day, afternoon, night, wherever you are in your world. I'm out. Until next time, I'm Jen Simpson.
Phenomenon. Coding.